My name is Pamela Secchi. I'm the Director of Curriculum, and I have with me today Shelley Gustafson, who is our 612 ELA ELD Curriculum Leader, and Eric Brundon, who is our K-12 Science Curriculum Leader. And bringing the three of us together with slightly different areas of expertise is very deliberate, as we hope to show you as we move through our presentation on the Common Core. But first we have for you a question. What knowledge and skills have served you well in your careers as you are now? Just think for a second, and we're going to ask you to just call out. They may not be the ones that you were learning in your K-16 experience. So what types of knowledge and skills are really important in serving you well now?
Writing skills.
Say?
Writing skills.
Writing?
Basic math.
Classroom management.
Being able to read.
Lesson planning.
So reading, literacy, planning, is that, you think it'll work a little better? And I heard problem solving early?
Problem solving through critical thinking.
Ah.
Bloom's taxonomy.
Being resourceful.
Public,
Go ahead.
For me, it's just general communication skills.
And so I see that here and here, so communication in general. And Ross?
public speaking.
Yeah, I'm still working on that one.
Educational background, very good.
Tell me more about that.
For example, if I'm teaching in a bilingual classroom, I must have my master's of.
So I'm going to
Very
add to
advantage.
that and say cultural perspective,
Yes,
and then some really specialized skills.
yes.
Okay. So let's keep these in mind for just a minute, and we're going to move forward. So what are the Common Core state standards? Well, they are the K-12 academic standards for us in mathematics and English language arts literacy. And I abbreviated literacy, but the full title is Literacy in the Technical Subjects: History, Social Science, Science, Art. They were developed by states, and the states voluntarily chose to adopt them. So these standards, unlike one of the myths out there that it was top down from the federal government, were actually created by two groups who came together, unique in that sense. It was the National Governors Association, so the governors from all 50 states, plus the DC, and the Chief State School Officers Organization came together to work collaboratively on these standards. And then states chose to adopt them through their legislative process. August 2010, California adopted them. 45 states plus the District of Columbia have currently adopted these standards. They are aligned to the expectations of 2- and 4-year colleges and internationally benchmarked. They were really in response to what all of you were telling all of us in K-12 about the skills and knowledge that you needed, the students that we hand off to you to have when they come to you. Internationally benchmarked, because as you're going to see in a minute, we're facing some really stiff competition in our global economy. And they enable collaboration and comparability across states, districts, and schools. So in the state of California, we all previously under 1997 were operating under the same California content skills. And so one would assume that across districts within the state of California, there was the ability for all of us in K-12 to collaborate together, and there was comparability. All of our students took the same summative assessment in May. However, The standards in other states were not comparable. Some might have been higher, although I'm a little biased. I think California's 97 standards were very high. Some states were not at all, and so there was no comparability. It also hampered students who were moving from one state to the next. So why the Common Core? Well, first of all, the changing nature of technology. And that it would be silly for me to think that I need to say, technology has changed from when I went to school and we didn't even have an overhead. And everything that our kids do now, our students do, is all involved in technology. But I want to take it one step further and put out that technology is enabling us to assess learning in a way that we've never been able to do before. We now have the technology to go beyond multiple choice. And that's really key for the rest of what we're going to share with you today. Competition in a global job market. We all know the statistics that we've been facing and the outsourcing of our work. But really key, the college and career readiness changes. So there was a study done at Berkeley that stated that from 1999 to 2003, more knowledge was developed than had ever been developed in human existence. Just in that short period of time, that much knowledge. We used to think that we could take all the knowledge and skills that students needed to know to go on to U, lump it all together in a list, divide it by 12, and decide what we could teach each year. And by the end of those 12 years, the students would have everything they needed to go on. Not so anymore. Knowledge is changing. So students need to understand core ideas and concepts. They need to have an extraordinary capacity to assemble information, to analyze and synthesize that information, to evaluate it for credibility and utility, and then to apply it to new situations. So to compete in a global economy, we need to improve the educational outcomes for our students. So consider some of these facts. 20% of students entering four-year colleges and at least 40% entering two-year community colleges must take remedial courses. Would you agree? 62% of new jobs in 2018 will require post-secondary education. That was not something when I was choosing to go to college was a concern. There were many jobs for students who had a high school education. So without a dramatic change, of course, U.S. employers will be unable to fill 3 million of these positions. PISA is the International Program for Student Achievement. It's given to 15-year-olds across 30 countries. And the results for American students were the same it's given every 3 years, in 2009 and 2012. American students ranked 25th in math, 21st in science, 15th in reading, and 24th in problem solving out of 30 industrial nations. Pretty staggering, isn't it? So, Common Core is designed to help us develop students who are college and career ready. And what a student looks like that is college and career ready in literacy is able to demonstrate independence, is able to learn by using rich, complex text, extracting ideas independently without scaffolding, writing, building strong content knowledge through the use of text, able to comprehend what he or she reads, as well as critique what he or she reads, the ability to evaluate, to value evidence. It's not about what I think or what I feel, it's about what the evidence is showing. Able to use technology and digital media strategically and capably, both as a consumer and as a producer. And one of the other attributes that you mentioned, understand other perspectives and cultures. So in order to create and develop students with those attributes, we need to change our instruction in the classroom. And this has been what we have been living, breathing for the last 2 years. The instructional shifts that are happening in our classroom. Because we're very clear that any document, a standards document or any other document, is not going to affect change. I can give you a new standards document and you can tell me that you're implementing these standards, and if nothing changes in your instruction, you're not doing anything different and your students aren't going to be any different. So the instructional shifts for us are building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction and informational texts. We're aiming for a 50-50 balance of nonfiction and literary fiction. We're also building the skills in our students to be able to extract the knowledge from the text, to interact with the text. Reading and writing that's grounded in evidence from text. You're going to see that we used to have assessments that asked a student, so the character in this story was suffering from a hardship and overcame that hardship. Tell me about a time you overcame a hardship. Now that's not the kind of writing I think you need from your students. Regular practice with complex text, and the rigor is significantly increased in grade level text, and its academic vocabulary. For students who are college and career ready in mathematics, the standards have a component that is the mathematical practice, and they describe what a mathematically competent student does every day as he or she interacts with mathematics. Making sense of problems, making sense of them, and persevering in solving them. Making sense and persevering, are those attributes that would serve you well? Reason both abstractly and quantitatively. Constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning of others. Really understanding the math, not plugging in a formula, but understanding it, being able to interact with the math and critique the reasoning of others as you discuss the math. And do you see the crossover between the mathematics and other subject areas here and the skills that we want students to have? So when I was reluctantly in my more advanced math classes, I was still struggling and frankly getting good grades by learning all the tricks to do the math. I never understood it. I certainly wasn't able to construct an argument around what I was doing or critique the reasoning of someone else. And modeling with mathematics, applying the math to real-world problems and situations. Using appropriate tools strategically. Sometimes that may be paper and pencil. Other times it's a graphing calculator. Attend to precision, both in the way that you talk about mathematics as well as in the computation. Look for and make use of structures, and looking for and expressing regularity and repeated reasoning. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to take over from here and talk about the instructional shifts. Do you want me to do the shifts in math first?
Sure.
Okay. So in order to move our students towards those mathematical practices that we described, the instructional shifts in the classroom are to focus strongly where the standards focus. Previously, the 97 content standards in math were what they called a mile wide and an inch deep. Students were exposed to everything, but didn't really understand anything deeply. And so their standards are focused and they link from one grade level to the next. That's the coherence. And there is rigor that in equal parts requires fluency, application, and deep understanding.
Okay, all right. Good morning, my name is Shelley and I'm the Language Arts Curriculum Leader, ELA and ELD in Long Beach. So we'll walk you through the key design considerations for the standards, and we'll start really large, very globally. We'll talk a little bit about the assessments that we'll be facing coming up next year, where we talked about them coming live next year, 14-15. But the work that Eric and I do is training a lot of our teachers. So my focus is middle and high school, and so I can speak a little bit about the K-5 standards. But what's really significant about our standards, the Common Core, is that they are designed around what we call anchor standards, and the anchor standards are the same K-12. I'll say that again. We've never seen this before, where there's a similarity and a trajectory, I guess I would use that word, from K-12, which means that the same standard in third grade is the standards that the students are working on in third grade are similar to what they're doing in 11th grade. Obviously, the text is more complex. There will be grade level standards for K-8, and then similar to our California standards, we have what we call bands. The 9-10 standards are the same, as well as the 11 and 12. We have a focus on results rather than means. The integrated model of literacy is quite significant in our standards, and what that means is that, and we won't be studying the standards today, obviously, but we will share with you what some of them look like, and you will see a really natural progression and integration among the speaking, listening, reading, writing, and language standards in ELA, which means literally that what you're talking about, you have read about. What you're reading, you're writing about. So those processes are not individual, they're absolutely integrated, which is not really where we've been before. Very unique and very exciting is an inclusion of research and inquiry standards, as well as the media skills that are required as we move into the future, which Pamela mentioned. And Eric and I work together really shoulder to shoulder as we work with our teachers, because there's a shared responsibility for the literacy pieces. So he'll speak to you about what that literacy looks like in science. And the focus on coherence in instruction and assessment, and that's the work that we do every day, which is helping our teachers see the connection, the obvious connection between what they're doing every day and the assessment pieces. So I want to focus just for a second on the right-hand side, because you can imagine that the work we're doing, that we have been doing for the last 2 years, has been just a little stressful for our teachers. I'd like to say we have it all figured out, but of course we don't. We're working diligently every day. But what a lot of students, what a lot of teachers want to know as they're faced with these new standards is, well, how restrictive will this be? And how much will I be able to do what I've always done? And so on the right-hand side, these bullet points tell us that the design of the standards do not tell teachers how to teach. There is no page turning in these standards. Do this and then do this. So definitely the academic freedom that they have always enjoyed is completely appropriate in this set of standards. It does not describe all that can or should be taught, and that's an important consideration for our teachers as well. And the last bullet talks about it does not define the nature of advanced work. And it's been interesting to work with teachers this year and last year, because a lot of them are concerned about our struggling students as well as our advanced students. And when I remind them that our California standards never called that out either, they look at me like, oh, you're right. In other words, these are the standards, and it's up to us and our expertise to differentiate depending on the needs of our students. So we'll take just a few moments here and give you some language that you might be hearing in the paper and among your colleagues about the assessment piece. So we'll go really large, and then we'll start to move to more granular pieces. So obviously we need to pay attention to and know the demands of our upcoming assessment. And so it's called Smarter Balanced. And I always have to tell people it's like the butter, but with a D. And so in California, our entire state is underneath this consortia, and we call it SBAC. So you might start to hear that lingo. So the Smarter Balanced Assessment System, which, as I mentioned before, we will be transitioning to this new assessment live next year, 14-15. Every single item on that assessment is tied to one or more claims, and I will share those with you in just a moment. But in grades 3 through 8, notice it says that students can demonstrate progress toward college and career, the idea being they're not there yet, but it's all completely aligned with these anchor standards that are the same K-12. And then the focus for high school, of course, is that students can demonstrate college and career readiness. So let's look at the 4 claims. Hopefully, as you can see, we want students to demonstrate college and career readiness in English language arts and literacy. I don't think there's anyone who would say that was not a good idea. So I'm sure you're sitting here thinking that would be great if every student who came to our campus was completely ready. So in order to be ready, this would make sense. So claim number 1, and again, these are the claims that are tied to our assessment system. So claim number 1 is on reading. Pamela mentioned the idea of reading closely and analytically and focusing on the evidence in text rather than what's outside of the text. And that's a really important point as we work with our students, because in many ways this is an equity issue. We want to make sure that all students have an equal opportunity. So it really is not about your background knowledge or your background experience. It's about the evidence in the text. And when you work with students in that regard, it's pretty empowering. The second claim is on writing. And again, a little bit of different language here, and I'll show you in a moment what kind of writing we're talking about, but the focus is really on argumentative and expository kinds of work, which is the work of college and career. Speaking and listening has taken a pronounced and a front seat to our standards. In the past, our speaking and listening standards were rather contrived, a little stiff, and students were asked to stand in front of an audience, as I am doing, and presenting information and asking their colleagues to rate them and turn in a slip. And that's really not what we do in the real world. So the standards are much more authentic, much more collegial in nature, which is what we do on a normal day. And then the 4th claim is on research and inquiry. So this is a whole new strand of questions and work that our students will be doing as they're taking this assessment. And I think in a moment you'll be surprised when you see what these assessments will look like. That might look familiar to you. That's what test items look like when I was in school, and Pamela mentioned this before. This is a grade 7 real former test question from our California Standards test. And it was all multiple choice. So students were asked, we can tell from the events described in the poem that the speaker is or has, whatever the answer is. And lots of times our kids would know the answer, and sometimes they won't, and so they might just mark C because I haven't marked C in a while, and we just move on to the next question. So the CST has been just a long list of a lot of passages in English, some narrative, some expository, but this was the format. So let's look at this same skill in this new format. So we now, instead of calling our questions multiple choice, they are now called selected response. And when we train our teachers, they look at me and say, well, is it the same? And I'm like, well, let's look at this sample and you tell me. So students are still selecting a correct answer, but look what's happening here. So in this case, I won't read this to you, but students are reading an excerpt from a real novel. This is a Gary Soto novel, and this is grade 7, by the way. But what happens is something different here. At the bottom, it tells us that Bentley feels hurt and upset after falling off his bike, so that's a statement of fact from this text. And this is what the student does. Which of the following sentences from the passage best supports this statement? Now look at the language in that stem, the word support. Evidence. Now, I didn't give you the choices, but below this would be A, B, C, D, so it has a similar structure, but the actual work and the rigor that students are being required to have is much different. So that's a selected response. Let's look at a few more samples. This has always been really problematic. This is just my feeling as an English teacher. This is how we tested grammar. So what we did, what the CST has always done is to provide a student paper that is riddled with errors. And what the student was asked to do was to identify, quite out of context, in my opinion, errors. So this first one asks, which sentence could Jasmine add to the end of paragraph 1 to help develop the situation? So you're reading these 4 samples, and the student has to go back to the poor essay and try to determine what Jasmine might do to make it a better paper. Which sentence could she add to the end of paragraph 5, and so forth. So this is what grammar looked like before. Now with our new assessment system, this is what that same standard will look like in an assessment or an assessed situation. So students will get, again, what we call a stimulus text. It will be something that they read. So they read this little piece. Now look at the difference here. The prompt says, these sentences begin the description of a setting. Write a paragraph that develops this description and fits the mood and situation. Use vivid details and so forth. The language of the prompts has really changed. It's much more rigorous, but the work that students must do to prove what they know about grammar is quite different, and I feel much more authentic. And so in this case, students would create or type in what we call a constructed response into a box, like a text box on the computer. So imagine the computer skills that we need to be sure that students are proficient in as they approach this test. I pulled this one because it's such a poorly written task. This is a persuasive writing task. And you are writing a persuasive letter. I believe this might have been grade 8. But I want you to focus on the prompt. So this was the infamous write a letter to your principal, which, I don't know, for a lot of kids, they wouldn't ever write a letter to a principal, and so it's a little bit kind of a false situation. Your principal wants to reward your class by taking students on a field trip. Convince your principal that that's a good idea. All right, it's not very authentic. So let's see what students do now. Now this is the real kind of stressor that a lot of our teachers are being faced with, because this is such a large task. These are called performance tasks. And in a few moments, we'll actually ask you to dive into one that we've brought, and we'll ask you to work with someone and just look at what's there. But here's the outline, and all the pieces are not here because this is just the procedures that kids will go through. So what they're going to do is the students are being told that they will read about historical fiction. They'll listen to an interview with an historical fiction author. They'll read a picture book and an excerpt of a classical historical fiction novel. 4 genres. We have 4 different pieces of text going on here. You'll answer some questions, and then you will plan, write, and revise your own historical fiction narrative. Okay? And there are steps that the students will follow, and you'll see a more authentic task in a moment, so let me just scroll through this. So now you're going to read the sources, and you'll watch a video. So there's source 1, 2, 3, and 4. For the questions, use your remaining time to answer the questions below. Your answers will be scored. They'll help you think about the sources you've read and viewed. You can click, look at the inference here. This is all done on a computer. You may click on the appropriate buttons to refer back to the sources. Think about how authentic this is in terms of real research in a kind of controlled environment, but it much more readily matches the tasks and the work that students need to do in the real world. The last part, I'm going kind of quickly, is you have 70 minutes to plan, draft, and revise your narrative. This is where teachers go, 70 minutes? Because we watch our kids fumble and stumble through just getting something down on paper in 50 minutes. Here's the bottom line. The bottom line, here's the prompt. Write an historical narrative using what you learned from the sources. Your story may take place during the same time periods or in the same places as the sources, but do not use the same characters, exact settings, or specific situations from the sources. and so forth. Okay, rigorous, rigorous, very rigorous.
But
And
you
I'm
have
watching your
said-
faces. Pardon me?
But
This
you
is-
have already given on how to do the task.
Yes, I mean, that's the goal. The
Several
goal would be, a couple of slides back, there was that intersection of instruction and assessment. This is the work that we're doing with our teachers presently in terms of changing instructional practice. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of it is the release of responsibility to allow kids to do the work that we have for a couple of years not allowed them to do, because teachers tend to do more of the work than the students. So that the students have an opportunity to do this kind of work so that they can do this
Yeah.
kind of task.
With my experience, the bottom line is you really have to start in kindergarten.
Absolutely.
Kindergarten and first
Let
grade.
me speak to that. I'm glad you've mentioned that, because the work we're doing in our district, and as you probably know, Long Beach Unified is huge. It's a huge district. We have hundreds and hundreds of teachers. And I can say that we're on a broad spectrum in terms of acceptance and understanding and willingness and risk-taking and all of those things. But the really important part is when you really talk to teachers and you say, this is the work that kids will start doing or are starting to do now in kindergarten, that when you're talking to a 10th grade teacher, this is not going to happen next year. Like, they will not suddenly have these magnificent 9th graders in their 10th grade class and they've just got this all figured out. This will take time. It's a slow, purposeful, thoughtful movement and shift in instruction. So, Eric will share some science samples.
So while
Okay.
Eric is passing those out, I wanted to give you a little background on the Smarter Balance. Because even though our students will not have had Common Core instruction up through in 10th grade. You can go ahead and pass them out.
We're not passing that out yet.
Oh, okay,
We're
then
not
I
there
just
yet.
interrupted.
That's
I'll go
okay.
ahead and do that.
I'll try to pass out.
I just, Smarter Balanced Assessment, we will be doing the field test where all of our students will take that beginning in about 3 weeks. And it is all done online. And so each student is at a computer. And it, not this year because this is the field test, but next year it will be computer adaptive for the first time. Similar to how the GRE is done, where students will enter at grade level and depending on their first answers, the computer will either go down in difficulty or go up in difficulty, and this will give us benchmarking for those students to use. So it's a very different assessment just in the mechanics, not to even imagine what we're presenting to you in terms of the content.